Hi, welcome to Coreybank High School, Liverpool, England in 1956. These two boys, John Lennon and Paul McCartney, joined this groovy-doovy band called the Quarrymen. John on vocals, Paul and George Harrison on guitars, and a crap ton of their friends on a variety of other instruments. John didn't like the name. Don't like it? He cried in the air about it. Screw y'all, they're called the Silver Beatles. Not anymore, they're the Beatles. Not anymore, they put an A in there. Great news, here comes drummer Pete Best with his best drumming skills. What, you thought I was gonna say Ringo? You silly goose. But yeah, he was there for a bit. Great news, here's a German painter named Stuart Sutcliffe, who was once the bass player. The band was now a five-piece, and they were buying gigs at German strip clubs? Yeah, sure, why not? The club owner was all like, "Aren't you boys a bit too young to be playing at this club, Schneider?" And the boys was like, "No." But he says, "You lying Schwarzenegger!" And they were kicked out. "Can you stay, Stu?" said the Beatles. "Not anymore," said Stu. Damn, now Stu left to be a painter once again. They're now working for this guy named Tody Sheridan in 1961. The Beatles go around various venues and they look tired. This didn't stop Brian Epstein from developing a crush for the band, and he got producer George Martin to sign the band to EMI Records. Very good," said George during their verse recording session. "The only problem is that damn drummer. Get him out of here! Get him out and never return from which he came!" "Wait, I didn't do anything!" Tired of using Pete? Using revolutionary powers of the almighty record label, they successfully grabbed some scraggly kid named Ringo Starr from some random band and chucked him in straight into the Beatles. See, there he is. Look at him in all of his peace-loving glory. Martin didn't like him too much and temporarily replaced him with this guy named Andy. The band objected, so Ringo stayed. Tricked you there. And so began the Beatles, a four-piece pop-rock band out to make some dough. What, you thought I was gonna say it touched the cultural livelihoods of the 60s and forever changed the way the music industry approached how artists recorded music and experimented in the studio with varying degrees of genre switching and changing the way the public views music? Yeah, you wish. They made a song called Love Me Do. This neat song with this cowboy-esque harmonica. They played it a tad bit too slow. "Play it faster," said Martin. "Okay," said the Beatles. They played it faster. "You're gonna make money," said Martin. "Okay," said the Beatles. I mean, Martin's right, I suppose. Soon John and Paul would have sex and they would make a baby together. They called it the Lennon-McCartney writing partnership, which would come to bite Ringo and George in the ass later. 1963, the band spent a single hour creating Please Please Me in March of that year. The band didn't like how rushed it was. It was all a bunch of covers, but it didn't matter. Boom, there went the roof of this building. They're now the lords and saviors of rock. Wait, lords and saviors? Yeah, I'll get back to that later. The Beatles went on TV in front of like 15 million people, and girls were hyped to see what next Bang of the Boys would drop in the studio next. This cultural shockwave that was felt by millions is what you would call a crazed mass mania of Beatles fans. Wait, mania, Beatles, mania, Beatlemania. There was practically no escape from these four lads during the early 60s, and if you saw a huge group of teenage girls at some sort of stage or in a line with cops trying to calm the crowd down, your first thought to come to mind would most likely be, let me guess, they're here for the Beatles? You can make a religion out of this. The Beatles spent 3 months recording with the Beatles, released in November. 2 months later, the albums were sold by other countries, including America. The Beatles go on TV again. "Hey honey, I think the signal is breaking up. Honey, I think it's those 73 million people watching the same channel on their TV." People said, "We're sad that JFK's dead," but then in comes the Beatles and they all go, "Okay, never mind." The Beatles will also reach film status with their debut film, A Hard Day's Night, coming out in July 1964, along with an album of the same name. The Beatles were swimming in cash. Then boom, came Bob Dylan, who gave the band some drugs. "This is the good," said Bob. "Okay," said the Beatles. The band then became anarchists because they were tired of society and segregation, and they made Beatles for sale. I'll take free. By this point they had drugs, a cartoon, but they couldn't escape the fans. It sounded like the Fab Four needed help. Help. Wait a minute, the band released Help, the album and the movie, in August of 1965. This was the first time the band started getting sad. And you know the saying, being sad gets you a Grammy. Oh man, it looks like Paul is having girl issues. Paul could write a song about this. The band remembered when Bob told them to try drugs, so they tried drugs. Now they're tripping out. They're so tripped out they screwed around and they made Rubber Soul, their first experimental work. It's so high on pot they summoned a sitar out of nowhere and they played it. George and Ringo also got their time in the spotlight, so that's a plus. Trouble is brewing, however, in 1966. The Beatles got dunked on for this album cover shoot. Their final tour was a disaster in the Philippines. "Can you join me for dinner?" said the Philippines First Lady. "No," said the Beatles. And John said that they were more popular than the Lord and Savior. See? Told you that we'd get back to that later. In response, the band created Revolver, which shot at the haters. They shot at them with orchestral compositions, psychedelia, children's music, trumpets, Taxman, the whole damn package. The band then made Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. That's a mouthful. A concept record about this fake band that unites all the hippies together. Needless to say, it was a landmark, and people rightly won't shut up about it. Uh-oh, Brian Epstein is now dead of a drug overdose. The band made this tribute album and film about a walrus named Magical Mystery Tour, as well as an album and film about this submarine that the band kept talking about that just so happened to be yellow. They were barely in that one. The band did some meditation. "Man, we sure are having fun meditating," said the Beatles. "Not anymore, your meditators are creeps," someone said. "Ah, damn it, now we're very angry again," said the Beatles. Pissed, they recorded the White Album. They were barely in that one. Every single song was a solo recording, but it technically counted as a full album for some reason. A double album, even. Tired of being screwed over by your record label? Well, using revolutionary negotiation tactics, you can form your very own independent label. Don't like it? You can suck it up and pay for all the royalties until you're dead poor. The band formed Apple Corp. an American tech giant conglomerate that specializes in making phones. Haha, just kidding. It's their own record label. It was a nightmare to record their album, as no one wanted to be in the same room as one another because their wives were there. They also made Revolution 9.
Number 9, number 9, number 9, number 9.
The band was on the verge of bankruptcy, so they figured to end things off with a bang. They all did a peaceful hippie hug, they went on their Apple roof to perform one last time, they took a pic of these four lads walking along a crosswalk, and they made Abbey Road. Bye bye. Actually, not anymore, just kidding. It wasn't their last record. In secret, they recorded a TV documentary about their final recording sessions, and the film's accompanying soundtrack was Let It Be. It was screwed over by this ghost guy named Phil Spector. The Beatles were officially over, as they put a bomb in front of themselves and exploded it, scattering the bandmates in different creative paths. John and his wife Yoko Ono formed the Plastic Ono Band and released a handful of classic albums, including Imagine. He was shot and killed in 1980. Paul continues to have a career, creating Ram and Chaos and Creation in My Backyard. Ringo also continues to have a career, creating Sentimental Journey. You might also know him as the narrator for Thomas.
Thomas is a tank engine who lives at a big station on the island of Sodor.
And George also had a career, creating All Things Must Pass and Cloud 9. George died of lung cancer in 2001. EMI Records and what's left of Apple Records continues to milk the band's albums for what they're worth, but they'll stay immortal. What have we learned today? Do not read The Catcher in the Rye. Good night.
And now, our host for this evening, the Bony Rolls.